This is Sweet June. I'm back in my continuation of my video that I started in my truck. Black women and mental illness. Um, as I was saying, mental illness in the black community is a serious epidemic. It is a serious epidemic, and it's a stigma. It's a serious stigma in the black community because we are perceived we're supposed to be so strong that um, mental illness it's like we're not supposed to have mental illness because we're supposed to be so strong, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, because at the end of the day we're all human beings. We're just as human as everybody else, and I don't care how strong you are, at the end of the day you're still human. That's the reality of it. So um, black women particularly, I know black men suffer with mental illness as well. Um, but right now I'm talking about black women. Um, Black women, more and more black women are starting to suffer from mental illness and depression. I think mental illness and depression kind of goes hand in hand. I think in a sense, it can kind of go hand in hand. Um, I mean, just because you're depressed doesn't mean you're mentally ill. But sometimes depression and mental illness kind of goes hand in hand. Um, and the problem is that black women are least likely to get help. They say statistically black women are least likely to get help. If black women are suffering from mental illness, they're least likely to get help. And because it's the stigma of we're supposed to be strong, and if we go get help, we're weak. It's that's ingrained in our psyche. You know, kind of like if we get help, then we're weak. And when you get help, getting help doesn't mean that you're weak. Actually, getting help means that you're strong, because you're strong enough to admit that you're having a problem, whether it's you're suffering from depression, severe depression, or mental illness. You're smart enough and wise enough and strong enough to realize that you have a problem and you need help. So seeking out help is not being weak. Seeking out help is just the opposite. You're being strong if you're seeking out the help, because you're strong enough and wise enough to realize that you need the help. And I think some of the causes, I know, like I was saying in my other video, the younger generation of black women, they don't seem to have the mental stamina that us older black women. I'm not saying older black women don't suffer from mental illness and depression, but I'm just noticing that um, I'm hearing a lot of cases of black women, younger black women, killing their kids or hurting their kids, or things like that. They're just cracking under pressure. And like I've said many, many times before, being a single mother is tremendously, it has a tremendous amount of stress. And you have to you really, really have to be a strong person to be a single mother. And even if you are strong, being strong doesn't necessarily mean that you can't crack, that you can't break, you know, um, because being strong people are human beings too. I'm consider myself a pretty strong person, but there was times where you know it was never to a point to where I felt like I had to. Well, actually, at one point in time, I did receive some counseling for some depression that I was dealing with years ago. Um, but like a lot of black people, I quit doing the therapy because um, I'm thinking like a lot of black people. I'm straight. I'm good. I don't need no help, and that was my mentality. I was in a program where they was giving me some assistance, and that was the condition of the program is that I um, go get some counseling because I was suffering from, I think, a form of postpartum depression. When my oldest son was little, um, and that was the part of the condition of the program. And I quit. I went to about 2 or 3 therapy sessions, and after that, I just didn't feel comfortable with it, so I quit going because I was like, well, I'm good. I don't. I'm in which I was still really depressed, but thinking a lot like a lot of black people think. Yeah, oh, I'm straight. I don't need no help. I'm straight. But that is the problem. That is the problem, and that's why is mental illness and depression is an epidemic in the black community because we had a tendency to think as black people, because we think that we're supposed to be so strong all the time, and it's perceived as being weak to get help. We have the tendency to think that it's like that's ingrained in our psyche, you know, and it's a lot of it's the socialization, it's the mentality of our families. A lot of time, the mentality of our families a lot of times is uh, suck it up, and a lot of times black families are not supportive of someone that's struggling with depression. And I'm just being honest. I mean, tend to have the mentality to, suck it up, like that, instead of encouraging the person to get help, because if a person is severely depressed, they could commit suicide, and the person commits suicide, and the family members are wondering why this person take themselves out, you know, and because the family probably say, oh, the worst thing you could say to a depressed person is get over it, or shake it off, or get over it, or whatever. That is the single worst thing that you could say to someone that's suffering from depression. The Bible says we are to console the depressed ones. Yes, that's scriptural. It says that we are to console the depressed ones. So that's what we're supposed to do. And because a person commits suicide, and then people wondering why, why did this person commit suicide? We didn't recognize the signs. Well, you might have recognized the signs, but you ignored them. You told the person you didn't take that their depression that they were dealing with, you didn't take it seriously. You told them to shake it off or whatever. And black people have the tendency to do that because this mentality that we're all supposed to be so strong. And the reasons why I think black women suffer from depression and mental illness is because, let's face facts, the black women, we have a lot on our shoulders. We carry a lot of burdens on our shoulders. I'm gonna keep it 100. I mean, we as black women, we have to deal with so much. Sometimes I'm gonna be honest. Sometimes I really feel overwhelmed just being a black woman. I really feel really overwhelmed at times. Because it's like you got to deal with racism um, by society, and of course, the media has always, told us in a subliminal way that we're not beautiful and all that. And our beauty's never been celebrated. So that's just part of it right there. And we were always kind of told that we were less than, and still is. Um, we got to deal with racism by society, but then we have to deal with racism and sexism as well. And to add insult to injury, we got to deal with it coming from our own men. I don't know about other black women, but it's very hurtful. It's very hurtful to know that there's uh, I don't know what the percentage is, but seems to be quite a few black men that seem to have harbor a lot of hatred and everything towards black women. And um, for the most part, um, our men really don't have our backs. You know, there's a very small percentage of black men that do have black women's back, but it's just unfortunately not enough. So a lot of times black women are put in the positions to where we all know it takes two people to make children, and it should take two people to take care of the children. But black women are often left holding the bag and taking on the responsibility of taking on the family and taking care of the family and making sure that the family is provided for, and that is very stressful. It's very stressful. It's mentally draining. It's very stressful. That can be depressing within itself because um, we're women. We know men is supposed to be the head of the woman, and women wasn't supposed to be the head. That's scriptural. Women are not supposed to be the head. We're not supposed to be the head of anything. So this theory, a lot of times these black men get on YouTube or whatever, and they be talking about try to accuse black women